Golden Blade, Silver Veins by Magnus October, narrated by the author. Chapter 1. Curse. If ever a curse had been wrought unto the world, the immolation of Behar had acted as the catalyst. A power welled, vast and burning, in a young elven child. She was engulfed by it on the day of the fire. Her dark eyes danced with light as she watched flames lick at the walls of her home, the blood and flesh all around her sizzling with the heat. The girl's mother and father were no more than remnants, pieces scattered inside the cottage and onto her clothes and skin. She walked out the door, and her body was numb as she turned to watch. The girl did not need to see the magic from her hands to know it would be spreading to the rest of the village, because she was the one who willed it so. No screams were heard, the killing swift and the destruction absolute. She heard only the whispers of magic in her mind. They were not as clear as voices, but simply feelings made manifest only to her. Each day from the moment she was born, the whispers were there. As she had grown into sentience, they came in waves, teasing her, begging her, commanding her. So powerful, they said. So much potential. Let it fester, and let it become one great madness to dissolve all. She knew the madness was not to be trusted, not to be set loose, for when she heard the voices, her body trembled in fear. The mother and father of the young elf were kind for raising her in Behar, far from the castle of Cairn, far from the peering eyes of the royal family. She was a myth, a tale told to children at bedtime to strike fear in their hearts, lest they get the urge to stray from their beds. Magic did not exist, and if it did, it surely would bring ruin to all. But the girl was born, and therefore magic was born with her. Her parents knew it to be a bad omen, so they kept her safe and raised her to be kind. It had all been for naught. As she stood and watched, feeling the death all around her, the elven girl wept. Sparkling golden tendrils of magic swirled around her in a storm of blood and glory, and she felt utterly sick. Her lips, however, upturned without her leave, and she began to laugh. Her throat choked out a hysteria of laughs, then cries, then laughs once again, her smiles and frowns alternating with each moment that passed. The whispers were so loud she could not hear her own sobs, nor her own laughter. The madness rejoiced, and she felt herself resisting the urge to join. She was the most powerful being in existence, and the world would soon know it. That is what the girl feared the most, now that she had no one to keep her madness at bay. The door to a ramshackle cottage opened with a creak, the sound of heavy footsteps following. An elven woman closed it behind her, approached a padded chair in front of a dirty fireplace, and seated herself upon it with a sigh. She closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of earth and dust as her head leaned back. Her skin was damp with sweat, her deep brown hair in tangles that tumbled over her shoulders, and she cursed quietly. Although the hunt had garnered no results, at the very least, she had wild berries to show for her outing. It would have to do. She heaved herself up from the chair and made her way to a crude wooden chest at the foot of her bed. After retrieving a towel and a bar of goat's milk soap wrapped in cloth, she swore again as she felt the meager amount. If there were vendors willing, she would have to trade for more. Shaking off her concern, she reached a hand into the sack of wild berries, popped a few in her mouth, and made her way back into the woods beyond. As the woman walked, she entertained the notion of stealing soap, and perhaps a book or two, if the opportunity arose. Surely some rich trader would not miss a single bar in some weathered pages. The idea became more appealing with each step she took. Overall, it may save her the trouble of the townsfolk seeing her, and that was certainly a perk. She pictured it in her mind, the image of a bumbling aristocrat fretting over stolen soap, and she smiled. After some time, she finally reached her destination, A small, clear lake surrounded by deep green trees, with a cave bordering one side of its boundaries. It was one of the few places where she felt a sense of peace, with the calm water reflecting the slowly setting sun. She had thought that it was perhaps the most beautiful thing she would see in her lifetime. The simple joys were enough for her, not that she had much choice. She walked to a rock not far from the edge of the lake and placed her towel and soap onto it, freeing her hands. Her fingers began untying the laces of her worn, brown leather boots, and once they were off, she tapped them on another rock, sending lodged dirt tumbling to the ground. As she did so, she thought for a moment that she heard a rustling. Looking around, her eyes scanned the trees, but she saw nothing. She had never seen another soul, human or elven, this deep in the woods, and though her magic could shield the lake, why bother? The voices were trying enough without her using it, so she opted never to do so. Now, with her senses alert and mind wandering, she thought maybe she should have. The woman waited, listening in silence, but no more abnormal sounds occurred, so she decided to ignore it. After all, there was no force that would be a challenge for her. With boots set against the rock with her belongings, she moved her hands to the buttons of her shirt. There were only a few at her neck, and as she opened two of the three, the rustling sounded once more. Annoyance bloomed within her, and she could not stand idly by any longer. "I will ask only once. Come out." From behind a tree, an elven girl emerged, her face flustered. She wasted no time hurrying closer, her voice soft and apologetic. "I am so very sorry to startle you, my lady. I thought myself alone here until I saw you, and I let my curiosity get the better of me." The girl approached, her eyes going wide as she stopped in front of the woman. "My name is Asta," said the girl. "What might your name be, stranger?" Asta was, in one word, bright, like a ray of sunshine glaring into one's eyes that could not be shielded. But her gaze made the woman freeze in place, shock replacing all other emotions. She was the stuff of legends, of nightmares, and yet Asta was looking at her with wonder. It was not normal. "Leave." With slow, soft blinks upon her pale blue eyes, Asta did not waver. "A peculiar name, my lady. In apology, I offer you what I have." "Go." She did not stop speaking. Instead, she reached a hand into the large shoulder bag slung around her body and pulled out a small metal tin. "I have only tea at the moment. Would that be to your liking? What is mine is yours, as atonement for my rudeness." The woman was beginning to unfreeze from her shock, irritation rearing its head in its place. "What will it take for you to leave and never come back?" Asta startled at her words, as if they had done her a great offense. "Never? Do you own this land you stand upon? Is this lake yours? Is it your right to bar me from this lovely place?" This girl had no fear, and it was becoming evident she would not be convinced politely. The woman decided to take a firmer approach. "You will leave, never to return. That, or become dust where you stand, swept into the wind." Asta blinked, and against all odds, she laughed. "My, are you sure you're not a traveling performer? You play the role of the villain quite well. Very terrifying indeed. My lady, leave, was it?" She was teasing her. It was unheard of to tease the woman who housed calamity, and yet Asta dared. If threats did nothing, she would have to play along a bit. "That is not my name." Asta smiled sweetly. "I could have guessed. Would you be so kind?" "Valyn," she said simply. "Lovely," Asta said, brightening to a level that felt nearly lethal. "A lovely name for a lovely lady." Valyn froze once again. She could not remember a time someone had called her anything of that nature, anything but vile words and curses. This girl was clearly either new to the world or ignorant of it. "Are you satisfied enough to leave?" Oh, Asta pouted, holding the tea tin loosely in her hand, gazing at it like it was a puppy lost in the rain. I assume tea is not to your tastes after all. In that case, could I come another time? With something else? No, Valyn said quickly, putting as much venom in her voice as she could manage. My threat was not idle. Leave, and forget this place. Asta's face fell, her blue eyes round and shining, and Valyn bit back the urge to raise her voice. The girl's gaze was far too intense, her words far too frequent, and her energy far too much. Finally, she sighed very sadly and stuffed the tin back into her bag, both hands gripping the strap at her chest. Fine. I will not come here if it makes you happy. But I do hope we meet again, sometime soon. She turned on her heel and walked away without looking back. Valyn watched her disappear into the woods, the sun now almost set. Precious daylight had been lost to that odd girl, and it was irksome to a high degree. She shed her clothes quickly, tossing them onto the ground without a care, and dove into the cool water. As she bathed, she watched the fireflies of the forest begin to flit about as darkness fell, though the moon was full and bright in the sky. It was a pretty sight, and for only a small moment, Valyn thought maybe the wasted time had been for the better. After emerging from the water and wrapping the towel around her body, Valyn washed her clothes, the remains of her soap dwindling. She let her mind go numb, her mundane tasks overtaking her thoughts, reveling in the simplicity. She would not think about Asta, the strange elf who had seemed to have no idea who Valyn was. It was impossible. All knew of the young girl who had demolished an entire village, her small body entwined with golden magic. They said her eyes had been golden as well, that she had looked like a creature sent by death itself, wrapped in the power of the sun. She did not know the truth of it all, only that death was not her master. Death was her life's inevitability.